I think we're live, bro.
Yep. Yeah, just a second. I'm giving it a minute since we don't have any viewers yet anyways.
Oh, you want to give it a little bit of time.
So,
You're not like me where I just want to like jump right in, like get in, get in and get after it.
all right. Welcome to the Wild Farm Family Fun video channel. And so I am Troy Rice, founder of Farm Brigge. I have with me Nick from Wyld Joy. And so Nick and I actually met because we have a lot of the same passions. And we decided that, hey, why not throw an awesome video channel together with all of our experience and background, as well as our network of people. So what you'll also see is not only Nick and I, although this first episode will be, but you will see other experts in the area talking about similar things that we're going to talk about today, which is farm, food, family, and fun. And so a little bit of context about this video channel. My background with Farm Brigge has a lens into the farming industry with what we do to support the farming community, as well as around local food systems. And so I will be hopefully bringing in some type of flavor of the farming industry, farm workers, local food systems, why they're important to your health, and then what it looks like to integrate that into your own community. And then I'm going to kick it over to Nick to actually share a little bit about what Nick specializes in and all the fun that you're going to get from Nick today as well. So Nick, go ahead and take it away.
Troy, thank you so much, brother. I am first off just incredibly grateful, and I'm fired up to be kicking off this awesome collaboration and partnership with you. And I just want to drop in real quick just about acknowledging all the great work and vision that you have for Farm Brigge. And I just love what you're doing, and I love that we are so in alignment around the ecosystem of food, right? It really isn't just the journey doesn't just begin when I go to the grocery store. There's a whole process before that. And there's a whole process after that. And so we think about this amazing ecosystem of food and connection. And I just really love that we're coming together to sort of emphasize what those components, what that journey truly is with the farm, food, family, and obviously fun. Because if it's not fun, what the hell is the point of doing this? Pardon my French. I will not swear. I promised my mom I will not swear. But anyway, so yes, a little bit about me. So yeah, I bring in 9 years of cooking and chefing experience. I've trained under some of one of the best chefs in the world, in my opinion, here in Minneapolis. He has a doesn't really matter, but he has was a James Beard Award-winning chef, but it wasn't because he was a James Beard Award-winning chef that I was attracted to him. It was because of his kindness. And that's what he truly led with. And he actually really, truly led with presence, 100 radical presence. And so that is really what, when I think about the true people that have inspired me, he's one of them. And food is really just a pathway to presence and kindness. And that's what I'm really all about, is to really help people see that really food and creating food to cook well is really just an invitation to cook well and connect better with those that we love. And when I mean connection, I mean connecting to the food itself, connecting to the farmers that provided it, connecting to the natural elements that actually help make that food possible. Then when you actually connect that to yourself and the nourishment, and then when you actually sit down, which we're going to get into later, which I can't wait to get into this with you, is that we connect with our family and those that we love. And so it's this beautiful, amazing ecosystem of how this all kind of comes together. And it's Thanksgiving coming up, so this is a really, really powerful time where all of this is very, very present and very real, despite the disruption of what we're all living in right now. So that was a lot.
Yeah. Thanks, Nick. Hey, first of all, thanks for the kindness, man. Those are very nice words, and I expect nothing less from you. You're awesome. But yeah, just to kind of reiterate what Nick said, we are going to cover a lot of things here, a lot of things in the kitchen, but a lot of things outside the kitchen, which is what conversations happen around food. Like, where does that food comes from? What type of farm worker help went into producing that food, and what that system looks like. How does it even get to a grocery store? And what the importance is of consuming something that's closer to you, and what is called these days provides voltage to your body. Because if it's produced close to you, it means that your body can actually use it a lot more efficiently for the energy that you need. And so we'll dive into that kind of stuff later, but mostly what we talk about will be all around food, fun in the kitchen, and then really highlighting those that help make this happen for us. And so to just reiterate that, I just wanted to comment on that. Anyone that is still joining us, please feel free to chat in any questions or comments. We have the chat box open. If you have a question for Nick or I, just throw it in there. We can pause at any moment. And then to recap too as well, these shows won't always be just Nick and I. We actually will invite some of our network in, whether that be a farmer, a farm worker, a chef, a cook, recipe creator, moms and dads in the kitchen. I mean, if you're a mom and a dad in the kitchen and you have some fun stories to tell about preparing some food and stuff with your kids, like, we want to hear from you too. And so many different angles of people that we will bring into the show to highlight certain areas for you. If you're somebody interested, please reach out to Nick and I, because we would love to have a rich conversation with you around food and where it comes from. But I'm going to now kick it over to Nick to share some insights on a turkey alternatives for Thanksgiving. And then we have queued up a few family practices around at the dinner table, such as like gratitude and kindness, and some things that you can kind of build in with your food journey. So Nick, what can you tell them today?
Yeah, well, before I go any further, Troy, I do have a question, and I don't know if there's any chats coming in. But I want to know, when you talk about voltage of like eating food locally. So like, are you saying, Troy, that if I eat like locally grown, like let's say squash, that me going to the lake right now, which is probably about 46 degrees, that's actually going to help me get that voltage to jump into that lake?
Yeah, that's one example that we could describe voltage as. But what I was really getting to that is that food that is produced close to you, which means that it travels shorter distance. So typical large retail grocery store traveled over 1,500 miles to get there. And so what happens is that travels on a truck, it starts to diminish the nutrients in the food. And by the time you even get into buying it and preparing it in your kitchen, it has lost a lot or a significant amount of nutrients that you think that you are getting still. And so the concept of voltage is things that are grown literally in your backyard or the farm right around you actually provides the real amount of nutrients that your body needs, because it actually just was picked within a few short hours. If you attend a farmer's market, you can believe that some of that produce actually at the farmer's market was picked even that morning, which means it's within a 24-hour time frame. And so you can imagine the type of nutrients that go into that for preparing for your family. And so there's a lot of studies out there on this. There's a book called Lifespan. If there's one point I could point people to, there's a book called Lifespan out there that talks about this concept of the different genetic makeup of different produce or vegetables and things like that come directly from the ground to your plate, and why that matters to your body. And so I really appreciate diving into that, Nick. I know we can cover that in length at a different episode, especially if we get some questions in about that, because I love the concept of really trying to get something as close to you as possible, and even teaching families out there how they could grow their own little mini gardens on their back decks. It doesn't even necessarily have to be a 8x8 foot garden in the backyard. It could be a cherry tomato plant on your front porch. And so that's just step one into diving into a food journey with your family, and if you have kids, into helping your kids understand. So thanks, Nick.
Well, you are so welcome, Troy, and I cannot wait to dive into that with you more. Like, I think there is, what you're really describing there is that there is like, I know I talk a lot about, like, you know, what food can do in terms of heart and connection and love, but there really is some real hard science behind, like, what is really going on, as it comes to our plate, and it comes to when we actually sit down and eat the meal itself. And so this is really, like, I love that, because it's like heart math, which is kind of like an odd term, but it's something that I was just introduced to. But I love being in the kitchen, because, like, why not be able to combine heart and math? Because that's where the creativity of being in the kitchen comes from, is that you get to combine elements that don't normally exist and find a way to make it work together. So I'm really excited to dive into this, and I am finally going to transition here into the turkey pieces of what I was going to talk about. So as we talk, like, I know a lot of folks might be, you know, obviously getting ready to plan Thanksgiving, their Thanksgiving meal, and obviously it's not going to look like it did last year. I know just right now, like, there's new guidelines that things are kind of coming. Even as we lead into Thanksgiving, it's going to cause disruption, and we're not going to be able to connect like we used to. But that doesn't mean that we can't, like, stop, take a few big deep breaths, and say, hey, what can I control and what can't I control? And one of the things I really just want to stress is, like, yes, I understand, like, it isn't going to look like years past. And yes, like, this whole year of 2020 is, like, gone to pieces in so many ways. But really, I think the heart of the matter is that I still want to bring a very heart-centered, a very loving and delicious meal to my family, whether I can do that with 3 people in my family or just like 10, or if it's a virtual deal. But I can control my attitude and my actions. And so I want to just offer up everybody, in the chat, or as we sort of wrap up here, I have a video that I did for this year, 2020, called Smokin' Turkey Pieces, which is really just a fun take on a creative way that you can go about preparing your Thanksgiving bird this year. So it actually it incorporates a step that I think is really present for you, Troy, and Farm Brigge, which is, like, actually going to the butcher and actually having the butcher break down your turkey for you. Because what you're doing is asking the butcher to break down the bird into, like, a breast, a couple thighs, and a couple legs, which is going to increase your cook time, or I'm sorry, decrease your cook time, but it's also just going to be a fun way to actually do a bird that isn't a full bird. So you don't have all those crazy leftovers or anything. You can actually manage how many mouths you're going to feed by limiting the how much food you're cooking, if that's of interest. So that video called Smokin' Turkey Pieces will be available for free in the link with the YouTube channel that I think we share. So that will be available to everyone. And really, it's just all about it's about having fun too, right? The recipe is about having fun and making kind of a light joke about this year. I know it's not funny that we don't get to connect with everyone that we want to, but again, control what you can and let go of what you can't. But I think the primary purpose of at least me is that I still, like, that doesn't change how I want to show up as a brother, as a son in my family. And I know for maybe you, it doesn't change how you want to show up as a father and as a husband, Troy.
Yes, absolutely. Totally with you on that one. It's a different year, so
to put it kindly, yes.
Yeah. Well, cool.
So is there any other questions that anybody has out there about the turkey, or how to prepare, or what to think about as far as hey, like, I don't know, any questions out there? Any questions that you have, Troy?
So this is your chance, guys, to post a question for Nick on turkey alternatives, especially if you're preparing a turkey this year, or anything else that you think Nick might be able to help you with. In the beginning, Nick talked about his extensive journey into food and learning about all the different culinary arts of how to prepare things from across the country, traveling and everything. And so if you have a question that you want to throw at Nick, we're welcoming questions right now. We'd love to hopefully have you stump us even. It would be an awesome experience just to put us into a challenging spot. And then as far as the link, we will make sure that we share that link on Facebook and YouTube as we're live streaming right now. So you'll have access to that free course. So look out for that link as soon as we end here.
Yes. Speaking of the course, I do have a very special like Plantsgiving holiday sides that you can prepare. It is an online course. There is, I think, 5 recipes, which is a like marbled mashed potatoes combining sweet and regular Yukon Gold mashed potatoes, balsamic glazed Brussels sprouts, kaboka squash tots with salsa matcha, and there was one more. Anyway, oh yeah, it's a cashew pumpkin cheesecake. And all of those recipes and those tutorial videos I put into a course called Plantsgiving. I am offering that up to this beautiful group of people who's all out there in the world. So that is a free course that anybody can download and have just another fun way to maybe think about Thanksgiving this year. So just to have that support, to have that guidance in this year, I think is more important than ever. So.
Great. Cool. Thanks, Nick. I did put a comment in there that the link to the course material and stuff, everything will be put in the comments at the end of the video. So if you're curious about that, we will share that. Nick also produces, I believe, classes regularly, or he tries to. And so not only is that course going to be available, but expect to see more. I'll also share Nick's website, which is wyldjoy.com, I believe, but I will share more information about that. But if nobody has any questions around the food intake, what we'll do is we'll shift over to the next topic, and we'll cover more of Thanksgiving themed topic in next week's video. And so that'll still give you an opportunity to chat in questions then. But for now, let's kick it over to the health side, Nick. So, besides being an awesome chef in the kitchen, you're also a health coach, right? And so share with the followers here on some health tips or some family tips that they can think through as they, well, in most cases, probably with their immediate family during COVID, if they're not lucky to meet with their extended family. But
sure,
some insights for them.
Yeah, thank you, Troy. I think when I envision like at the heart of what I do is really about making sure that everyone feels that they belong. And I know this year is going to be different, and I'm going to stop saying that because we all know that. But what I think when we sit down at the dinner table, if you sit down at the dinner table this year, as hard as it might be, I think it's really, really, really important to talk about gratitude. And maybe some distinctions within gratitude is like, well, what is it that is like the biggest win of the year? And what was the most challenging part of this year that actually turned out to be a big win? Like, what are these things teaching us? And I think I think it's really just about, like, when I think about food, like, it's really just a gateway to rapport. It's a gateway to connection. And I think the deeper we can dive into the connections, establishing that rapport, asking questions, I think the better we're going to have a more fulfilling holiday experience this year. So really think about, yes, gratitude, but then two, like, really leaning into, like, what are the lessons that this year has really taught us, taught you, taught your family? And maybe it's about not so much like what happened to you, but that how this year, all these things that have happened this year have happened for you. So that's one thing that I have really been leaning into since all of this has started, is like, how is this happening for me, not to me?
Yeah. So Nick, if you wouldn't mind, share a little bit about your story of how you got into food, if you don't mind, because I think that would really help people appreciate where you're coming from on the gratitude and really looking at life a little differently. So if you wouldn't mind diving a little bit about your background.
Yeah, thank you. Wow. So I got into food and cooking all because I was facing one of the most challenging moments of my life, which was overcoming an addiction, an alcohol problem. And pretty much from the very first day that I entered treatment, I realized that I needed to change everything. And so I decided that despite not knowing why this was happening to me or why I needed to do this, the only thing that made sense was to eat and move as if my life depended on it, which it still does to this day, 10 years later. So I've been super grateful, humbled to, have 9.5 years of sobriety. But I think as I look back on that, Troy, and thank you for this question, what I really am starting to opening up and starting to find distinctions in was that I was really starting to plant the seeds of I didn't know how to love myself. And so by food, cooking, and movement, that was a way for me to start loving myself. And also it's an action that tells me that dang it, I'm worth it. And I'm worthy of love from myself and from others. And so it was really just an action of self-worth and self-esteem. And so I continue to find all these crazy micro distinctions. And sometimes I think I'm on the moon when I think about these things, but that's okay. That's why we're connecting, because we're going to combine the heart and the math of what this is all about. But man, it really, at the end of the day, food and cooking is really just a practice of me being present.
Yes.
The more present that I am, the better I am for myself and for those that I love.
Absolutely. Awesome, man. Thank you. And I had to ask the question because you have a lot of great things to share that truly propelled you into this journey of food. And I think there are a lot of people out there that watch this video that can learn from that experience, not only if they're experience a similar background, but just the journey into food and how that can really play into not only your personal mindset, but your family dynamic, your strength, your community foundation. And so food really is a driver for that. And your story is a living proof that you can do that. And so awesome, man. Thanks for sharing that. What I would love to do now is share, I did chat in the question about what your family gratitude practice is, especially around the holidays. And so we'll see if we get any to share theirs that maybe we could have a conversation around. But what I'll do is I'll dive in and share ours. And so not only at the holidays, but we began building in a practice at the dinner table. And I have a 5-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a 1.5-year-old. And we started a practice.
Don't forget, you have a fourth one on the way.
Fourth one on the way.
Come on. Yeah, come on, bro.
Yeah, we have our first girl actually on the way in January, which is incredible.
Amazing, and congratulations. That's amazing.
Thanks, buddy. And so when we're sitting around the dinner table, though, and my boys can expect, at least the 5 and 8-year-old can expect this question to come up. So sometimes they prepare for it, which is, I just say, what is one act of kindness that you had today? And imagine when you say that to an 8 and a 5-year-old, especially a 5-year-old, they're like, what are you talking about, right? And so to break it down simple, I just say, what was one time where you thought of somebody else before yourself? And it could be as easy as when you got up to get a glass of water for somebody, you got a cup for somebody else. So not only did you get yourself a cup of water and bring it to the table, but you brought your brother a cup to the table. Did you go and you grabbed something for mom, and mom didn't even have to ask you for it, and she was shocked when you brought it to her, right? Putting them first, then you. And so what I'm trying to do is instill a practice of kindness in them. And so that is one way that we not only practice kindness, but practice gratitude in essence, right? Because gratitude, in your words too, is presence. Like, can we have that mindfulness around presence of where we at and what we have? Like, do we really appreciate what we have, or do we overlook what we have? Because a lot of the times we always are thinking more, but more is not always the answer, right? And so if we can just focus on what we have and then instill that in our kids, then we can have some really good gratitude conversations, especially around food, right? And appreciation. And so like what we talked about earlier in the show is where it comes from. You know, if you ask your kids or even yourself these days, if you go to the grocery store and you grab an apple, do you know where that apple came from? I mean, that apple could have came from China. If you're in the US, it could have came from China. And so just understanding where your food is coming from and who is actually farming that to get to your table, because there are a lot of things out there on farms, you know, fair labor practices, United Farm Worker Associations, fair trade. There are a lot of things that maybe we overlook or we don't see every day. And so it's best to just highlight those things and talk about them and that they're out there and how it truly gets to our table so that we can enjoy it every day. And so all of that are rich conversations around the dinner table that really bring appreciation to food, but then also the family dynamic. And so I know Nick and I are very passionate in this area, and we hope that we can instill that with you guys too. One last thing that I'll share, and then I'll let Nick dive into is a gratitude practice could be as simple as naming 3 things that you're grateful for. And so one that I commonly do is I'm grateful for my wife, my kids, and my health. And if you want to go deeper than that, just add some detail to it, right? Why are you grateful for your wife or your significant other? Why are you grateful for your kids? Why are you grateful for your health? Like, what's so important about your health? Why do you care about it so much? And so if you want to get deeper, that's what gratitude looks like. If you want to do it with your kids, it's really just getting them to stop being so busy, right? Because, you know, they get going on activities and this and that, and it's really grounding them and just asking them in one moment, just like, what do you care about? You know, what's one thing that you care about in this moment? And as a kid, that's enough. You don't need to take them down a big track or anything, and that's a good start. But I want to pitch this to Nick because I want to hear if Nick's got some interesting tips or tricks too around gratitude and presence in his health coaching that he could offer up in this space. There are no questions or comments yet, but as you post them in, we will make sure that we cover them. So don't be shy. Throw your questions in there. Nick and I will cover them, food or health related around food.
Awesome. And I just have to ask, Troy, like, last night, what was the answer for your 2 boys, 5 and 8? What were their 2 answers for kindness that day?
Yep. So the one, it's getting cold here. So I think we mentioned this maybe in the beginning of the show, but I'm from Michigan and Nick is in Minnesota. So both really cold areas. I think Nick even has snow where he's at. We haven't had any yet here where I'm at. But the kids have been going outside a lot and it requires hat and gloves. And so the answer that we got was, well, I grabbed down brother's hat and gloves for him because he couldn't reach them. And I said, I mean, at least you're acknowledging that you are helping out in that space, even if it was something that he couldn't even help himself. Still a good example. The other example I like to share that our boys often do too is if they see my wife's water or something on the counter or the table, they'll grab it and bring it to her in the living room. And sometimes she doesn't ask. And that's very nice. That means in that moment, going outside, playing with toys, whatever it is, playing with friends and neighbors, in that moment, they thought of grabbing that cup and taking it to their mom. So that is a simple, short, powerful example.
Wow. And I want to just ask a little bit deeper under that is like I feels like that the acknowledgement that like within your family that you acknowledge the kindness, that you give that platform to speak about kindness is actually like is really what motivates the kindness. It's not necessarily about like being rewarded for it, but it's like it's in a way that it's, and then I'm not saying it's also expected, but the fact that you talk about it and that you acknowledge it, it almost is like what is influencing your boys to actually be kind. And it's not like for reward or for punishment, which I think is really amazing.
Yeah. I appreciate that, man. Yeah, it's sometimes you don't get an answer, and that's okay, right? Because it's not about the answer, it's about the conversation. And so if we just bring it up and we continue to bring it up, then, hopefully someday they can share the same practice or mental thinking too with their family. And so that's where you build in that practice. What I'd love to do, though, is segue a little bit to in the kitchen with their kids. And so I'm going to also pitch to Nick on some ideas here as well. But the reason that we started Farm Brigge from the beginning was because not only did my wife and I want to understand where our food comes from, so basically we want to educate ourselves first. We also wanted to inspire our kids to eat better, right? I mean, there's so many snacks and sugary foods and everything out there, and some of the systems that we have in place don't really help promote that, meaning where things are located in a grocery store, certain foods in certain school systems, right? And so we want to do a better job teaching ourselves, but then we thought, why not get our kids involved in our cooking journey, right? Have them get up there and make breakfast and lunch and dinner with us, inspire them so they take ownership at the table. Have them do small scale gardening in the backyard, right? Or they're planting and harvesting, and then they're doing a little bit of canning and stuff like that for salsa and jams or whatever. And so we started involving them in the kitchen more, as well as in the community and doing farm tours and trips. And I also involved them with the business too. They attend a lot of things. Some of the kids give me a lot of pain points sometimes, but I often take the kids to farm trips where I go out and I'm talking to a farm about coaching or whatever it is, and the kids are coming with me. And sometimes they don't like it, but it's part of the journey. And so we love doing that from any of those type of meals. But is there any type of like tips or tricks you can share with your background about some cool meals or preparing things that would be fun with kids that maybe you've seen in the past or that you think would be fun?
Yeah. So first and foremost, I'd just be fully transparent. One of the things that that I dearly value as a coach is that I usually practice everything before I coach it, or I don't have kids, and so I can't say that all of these methods, but I have been a kid, and one of the things that I really encourage parents to do if they have picky eaters, one thing I know from being a kid is that I'm curious. And then I want to be asked to do something adult. And I'm not saying you give a 4-year-old a knife. Maybe you do. And maybe you have the next, I don't know, George Pepin on your hands. I don't know. But I do know that, like, at a certain age, like, it's okay to start to, like, help your kids feel like adults by inviting them to actually be a part of the process with you. Maybe it's about going to the grocery store, helping them helping you pick out the right, like, hey, what do you think about this apple or this apple? Like, maybe there's some things there. You could teach them a few things. But I really think it's just about inclusion. So, like, just getting kids involved. Because I think at the end of the day, curiosity is what is going to pique their interest. Like, if they're in the kitchen helping chop up vegetables, they might be a little bit more inclined to actually try those veggies. Now, I'm not going to say you're going to win there, but I think consistency is the key there. Yeah,
no, totally agree. Curiosity is always key, right? I think the number of, so we have this thing at nighttime that we do that is question time, right? And so it happens to be right before bed because that's when our life stops moving a little bit, right? All day. So, and that's coming from the same space that you're talking about, right? It's curiosity. And so I chatted in the box here, which is, feed into that. Feed into your kids' curiosity, just like Nick said. If you think it's something that they might want to know, why not spark that and get them curious about it to not only join you in the kitchen to make it or at least try it, right? Maybe you say something curious. I know oftentimes maybe some people will consider this cheating, but obviously we have a Google Home in the kitchen, and sometimes we want to ask the certain health benefits of a particular food item because we know that the kids will like that, right? We know that if we're having kohlrabi and they're looking at kohlrabi and they're like, no, but if you say, what's the health benefits of kohlrabi, and then they start rifling off all the different, vitamins or nutrients and everything, then all of a sudden their mind's going a little bit, right? They're like, oh, well, okay, yeah, well, maybe I'll try this because I can actually see the value, or So there are many different things or tools that you can use, but you're right. Like, it starts with feeding into what they already know to be true, which is their learning of the world is so vague, right? I mean, and I'd like to say that we are too. I mean, we are still learning every day, but as a kid, like, they're a sponge. They're trying to get as much as they can. So why not think through that option and feed into them?
And I love that you have like a little Google like voice, or Alexa. I know it's not Alexa, but like, hey, like, what is the nutrients of kohlrabi? And like, I don't even know what, like, clueless with kohlrabi. Like, I think that's only a Michigan and Minnesota thing, is like, what the F to do with kohlrabi? Like, what is this thing?
Yeah. So we just recently, and I'm going to try and recall this a little bit from memory, but so I think my wife looked up a recipe where you shave it.
Yeah.
And you make it into like little burger patties, or you can shave it into almost like a little salad. And so it's less about cut into a physical vegetable that you eat, like a carrot or a potato or anything like that, but it's shaved. And you can use it as a topping on something with a little bit of olive oil or garlic or whatever. And, listen to me try and talk like I'm an expert in the kitchen. I'm not by any means. My wife is great, excellent at cooking. But I'm just trying to speak from experience of knowing that you can take food and look at it differently. And sometimes when you shape it differently is when people actually eat it or put it in a way that they are curious about eating it, right? And so use those to your advantage. Like, it doesn't have to be eaten like that, right? A carrot doesn't have to be eaten like the shape of a carrot. You could dice it up, throw some olive oil and garlic on it, and throw it in the oven and bake it, right? I mean, and create some little, carrot bites. So use that to your advantage, because kids are always a fan of doing things that are fun. And so try to make it fun.
Yeah. And I think having like, creating like some fun recipe, like, even, hey, like, maybe it's not just like a carrot bite, carrot bite sounds great, but it's not just like roasted carrots with garlic. Like, maybe think about naming it kind of fun, right? Even if it's like, on the whim, right? I think like, oh my gosh, like, that name sounds really cool. I want to try that. So I think like, not like trying not to just pigeonhole yourself into like saying, oh, well, this is a kale salad. Like, this is like a crush your day kale salad or something like that. Like, just like, maybe try to really think about spicing up the names of what you're doing. And I really just wanted to share this real quick too, is that, whether or not you like burn the toast or you're perfect at burning the toast, like, it's about like what I remember as a kid. And I think what most families and kids are going to remember was like, what was the dinner time environment like? Right. So you're really not just creating like the meal itself. You're actually creating the story around like what you as a parent, or you as a step parent, or whatever it looks like, a guardian, a guide, whatever it looks like, that you're helping really create the story of like what your child child's experience is going to be like. Because I know I got pulled, like when I went, like just for example, like when I went to go pick raspberries with my mom growing up, like I would have this ice cream pail with a belt around me, and we'd be out in the raspberry fields, and she would have like a full bucket, and I'd probably have like a third of a bucket because I would like to just eat 2 for every one I put in there. But you know, like that, but I remember the memory, right? I don't remember, like, doesn't matter if it was raspberries or not, but it's like, what are we really creating as far as the story, as far as the memory? And there's so much that food is so responsible for in creating those memories.
Absolutely. Yeah. So one thing comes to mind is, again, just to recap, and by nature, as being the creator of Farm Brigge, I get the opportunity to work with a lot of farms. And so we also attend a lot of markets. And there's a farm that's near us called Schuler Farms that grows ground cherries. And so what's really awesome about them is they come wrapped in these like little, I don't know, leaf things, right? And so
it's almost like thin paper, right?
Yeah. Yes. So, I mean, just naturally, like kids are curious, right? They're like, how do I eat this or peel it off? And then you peel it off and you pop it in your mouth. And so we picked up a bunch of ground cherries and the kids loved them. Like they crushed them. They snacked on them as soon as we brought them home. And, you know, they still ask about it. They like often, like, do we have any ground cherries or when can we get ground cherries? And so, like you said, like it creates like this story. And it's good for you, right? It's really good for you, and it helps provide that appreciation. It also provides you an opportunity for the conversation around it too.
Yeah, and thank you for that's exactly, you know, thank you for sharing that story about the ground cherries, and they are really unique little things out there, and they are super delicious. And I'm glad that now they have that story like in their memories, right? And it doesn't always like, and I want to be very clear that like it doesn't always just have to be healthy, right? It can be like pancakes and syrup, right? Like that's okay. Yeah. But like really, again, like food is everything, and it is also nothing as far as like that connection is concerned. It's really about, again, that story about what we're going to look back on and remember about our childhood. And that's just know that that's a very important piece for a lot of people. It's like what that experience is going to be like. So
yes, totally agree with you. Yeah, there's a balance, right? I mean, you got to have some fun in there. One thing, so you mentioned pancakes. One thing I'll share, this seems to be popular when I talk about it. Maybe people are listening or watching this may know, but there's a cool way you can make banana pancakes that only involves eggs and bananas. And you can put in like some cinnamon or vanilla extract or whatever you want. But the kids love it. Like when I first made it, they had no idea that it was just made straight from fruit and eggs. And so really you just, you whip up some eggs and some bananas in there, and the starch concept of the banana makes it rise. And then you got banana pancakes, and then you throw, you know, some maple syrup on there, and that's an awesome breakfast dessert that you shouldn't feel any bit of guilty about eating. So and I'm not saying don't go out there and eat pancakes, you know, with flour and everything, but I just wanted to offer that alternative, is that even if you're somebody that truly is, you know, passionate about healthy eating only and, you know, less sugar intake and everything, there are those alternatives out there. And, you know, through this show, you know, Nick and I are going to dive into some cool recipes and backgrounds, which you can also get from his course, as mentioned too on the side here, that we'll provide a link to. But expect those things. Throw questions at us. We're here to answer them, especially if it's something you think we can cover now or we can cover in any of the shows each week. And then I also want to recap too that if you are somebody that's interested in joining our show, meaning if you are, again, a farmer, a farm worker, a chef, a cook, anybody in the food space, a recipe creator, anybody like that of that nature that is looking to share some tips or experience, that's why we've created the show. So it'll be a little bit of fun in the kitchen, a little bit of food, a little bit of family, as we talked about in gratitude and presence today. And then most importantly, fun. 100% fun.
100% fun. Yes. We cannot forget the fun. And sometimes maybe like for fun, maybe it's like maybe you need to like, here's a call to action. Like figure out your Thanksgiving family theme song.
Yes.
And then, like play it, right? And play it on repeat, like whatever it is. Whatever it's like, it's a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll by AC/DC. I don't know. But like find your family theme song. Like that would be fun.
Yes. Yeah. What?
And play it. Like, hey Alexa, play whatever song it is.
Right.
True Believers, right? I don't know. But yeah, like I think that could be some fun things that you could like just spice up some of the maybe it's I don't know. I say find your family theme song for this holiday.
So there you have it. Next recommendation, family theme song.
Let's share those. Yeah, share those with like Farm Brigge and Wyld Joy. I want to know what your family theme song is. And if you don't have a family, what's your personal theme song? I think I just named mine. It's a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll.
Awesome.
For whatever reason, that's what's present.
Top of mind, right? Top of mind. I did chat that in, so if any of them comes in here before we end today's episode, we'll make sure that we share them. Otherwise, these live recordings are going to be recorded, and you can watch it anytime. And so you can watch it on YouTube. You can watch it on Facebook. So if you can't make it ever when Nick and I are doing the shows, just know that you can catch it afterwards as they'll all be recorded and shared for you. And Nick and I will also monitor the comments following the live version of the shows too, so we can make sure that we're getting back to you. Is there any last parting thoughts, Nick, that you have? I know I want to do a lead into what we're going to cover.
I just will share this. So this is something that I keep up, like when I wash dishes, which I do a lot of, but I like to keep something that reminds me of why I'm doing what I'm doing out there in the world. So this says, my living in gratitude creates heart and meaning, connecting us to courage, joy, and aliveness. So that's just a little bit of maybe there's a favorite quote that you have that you could also post right above where you wash your dishes, just to remind you, even when you're doing the dirty work, that there's a real purpose to it. So
beautiful, man. I love that. Well, cool. Well, what's going on in the kitchen tonight, Nick? What are you making? Anything you making tonight that you want to share with me?
Not tonight. I did yesterday. I did a bunch of balsamic braised beef. So I'm kind of searing up beef and then braising it with like a balsamic beef broth. So
I'm gonna chat. In here,
and I throw that into a bowl, right? Like a I guess they call it like the Sue Ellen hot beef bowl, because Sue Ellen is my mom, and I pretty much name every recipe I create after a powerful, amazing, heart-centered woman in my family. Or men.
Awesome. Yeah. So what I did is I chatted in that if anybody would like Nick to prep a meal live, to please chat that in.
I'm gonna get you and your boys to do some banana pancakes. That sounds amazing.
Yeah. So simple too, right? I mean, it's two ingredients. So
yeah, I know, it's amazing. Super simple.
Well, good. Well, thank you everybody that joined us on this live version. Again, we will check in with anybody that watches it afterwards. Feel free to please comment or ask questions. We will monitor that. And every week we will go live, at least on YouTube and Facebook. And you can expect it to be around a similar time of day of the week. Next week we will do it ahead of or in front of Thanksgiving, celebrated in the U.S. And so to end the episode this time, I'd just like to share that next week's video will be Thanksgiving theme related, so you can look out for that. And if you are stuck home with your families during this season because of everything that's going on with COVID, we're hoping that Nick and I can bring some joy, maybe some fun in the kitchen, some recipes, some ideas, but most importantly, as always, when it's Nick and I, rich conversations around family and food and fun, and most importantly, those that bring it to our table, and that is the farmers and the farm workers. Any last parting comments, Nick, before we end today's show?
No, that's a beautiful final. I'm really hoping next week to actually bring in somebody that like an expert or someone that's out there, so we can kind of diversify. I'm sure people, I love my voice, but I don't love my voice. So I really do want to use this as a platform to get other people to speak about what they're up to in the world and how they're going to manage all these different elements of from the farm to the food to the family and obviously the fun. So I know those 4 pillars are really essential for what we're up to here. And so we're going to continue to dive into those and really try to bring some fun and family components into it next week.
Awesome. So we look out for that. We'll try and find somebody to join us next week's episode. Again, it'll be Thanksgiving related. And we hope you enjoyed this. Feel free to comment anytime. We will monitor the questions. And then I will also drop the link as promised to Nick's course material, as well as any site links for Nick's website. And if you're curious about Farm Brigge as well. So thank you, everybody who joined, and we will see you next week.
All right. Cook wild, everybody. Thank you, Troy. See you next week.
See you, Nick.